You tuned into the right place. Welcome to the rain. Golden Queuing. H2.0. Yeah. Yeah. You're looking for a diamond, found a treasure in the rough. Tired of all the noise, cause you finally had enough. I'm here to build a movement on a mission for the nation. Dropping gems of knowledge, killing all the hesitation. We fighting for the truth, yeah, we fighting for what's right. Building unity and shining up a brand new light. It's a variety channel, but the vision's crystal clear. Pushing us all forward, conquering the doubt and fear.
Welcome to the Queendom, it's 2.0 on your screen, where the content's real and smart and funny in between. This is more than just a stream, it's a platform for the change. Time to elevate the game and rearrange. If you're ready for a vibe that you can feel and trust, joining in the movement is a definite must.
This ain't just another channel talking smack behind the screen. It's a spotlight for the creators, building up a better scene. Spreading radical love, that's the message in the code. Helping everybody carry up a heavy load. From social justice issues to the laughter that we need. Planting seeds of progress, watch them grow from just a seed. This is authentic, this is raw, this is everything you saw. Welcome to the battle that is truly being fought.
Ooh, so come with your respect and see the real effect. Cause I protect my own right here on the throne. Don't make me envy. Unleash the dragon.
Subscribe, ring that notification bell. Yeah, you don't wanna miss a thing. Welcome to the family. Yeah.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let it ring out loud. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Like the mighty water. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. We remember it all. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Hope is alive, yeah. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on. Let's keep marching till victory is won. Stony the road we trod. Bitter the casting need right. But we're still here.
Hey y'all, what is up? What is up? What is up? It's your girl Golden. I am back this evening with another video, y'all. I had to come back and talk about this evening before I head out for the night. Because I just feel as though this needs to be brought to the attention. If people have not seen what has gone down and what has been happening, and they don't know about this case or this story, I believe that it's due diligence for us to talk about it. It's very important. And while talking about it, I also wanted to add in some things as well on how a lot of what is currently going on, at the hands of ICE and people, being abused and unalived and mistreated, it ties into a lot of, the themes that a lot of the Black community or the African American community, however it is you want to call it, have been trying to get justice for, talk about, scream about, and bring to the awareness of the people for many, many years, right? Like not even just within the current year or two. I mean, this has been now for a long period of time. Our ancestors were screaming to the top of their lungs about the same type of mistreatment. And now we are seeing a lot of stories as to where other races of individuals are now feeling some of that heat. They're getting some of that unfair treatment as well. And I don't ever want anybody to think that I think that that is fair or that's okay or now, oh, everything is balanced out. It's never okay. It's never okay. It wasn't okay when it was happening to our ancestors. It's not okay when it happens to us as Black people. And it's not okay when it happens to any race of people, which we talking about, like I told y'all, the human race is what is important. So whatever your ethnicity, your skin tone, whatever it is, your background or where you come from, what country you're from, or anything like that, it's never okay to be abused, to be unalive, to be mistreated, to be treated unfair. It's not okay for anyone. And so as I've been seeing these news stories, almost now it seems like daily with ICE and how they are treating and hamming people up, abusing people, unaliving people. And it doesn't matter what race of person it is they're doing it to. None of this is okay. It's not supposed to happen. It's not okay. And I don't like seeing it. I don't like bearing witness to this, but this is the world that we're living in, right? So we do have to watch these things. But, I did want to tie in some of this conversation to, like I said, when it has come to Black people and some of the struggles and stuff that we have been through, our ancestors have been through, and has been going on for a very, very long period of time, it just so happened to me, and I can't be sure because I'm going to say it's not everybody, but there has been like this disconnect when it comes to that, right? Like people will watch, people will see, people will hear, people will read and learn from history books or whatever, newspaper articles about how Black people are being treated and other races, right, of people are being treated, minorities. And I see that now it's like, you got to say the tough things sometimes. It just seems like now there is a lot of outrage and more of an understanding about what we or our ancestors was trying to say when it comes to the hatred in this country, the racism in this country and this world. Let's just put it to the world. And we have been shouting these things to the top of our lungs for a very, very long period of time. But it almost seemed with some people, not all, some people, that they really didn't care. And that's with anything. It doesn't have to be with racism. It doesn't have to be, with hatred or, things like that. It's just people just don't seem to care about anything until the problems end up on their doorstep, right? Or in their community or to their friend or their family. Then now they feel a type of way. And, now they honestly see just how serious these situations are and how unfair So basically, y'all, let me go ahead and tell y'all what we're going to be talking about on this live this evening, okay? And I'm going to make this one a quick one because I got somewhere to go. So basically, what we're going to be talking about, if y'all have not seen or heard, okay, I got a ground shot in what has happened this past weekend. So on January 24th, 2026, yet again in Minneapolis, Alex Pretti, who is a 17-year-old ICU nurse who spent days caring for veterans, was out on Nicollet Avenue recording federal agents when he saw an officer shove a woman to the ground. When Alex stepped in to assist and help said woman, he was pepper sprayed, tackled to the ground, pinned down by half a dozen agents. The administration immediately released a photo of a handgun child and called him a gunman who intended to massacre law enforcement. But here is the hard truth. Multiple bystander videos show Alex holding his cell phone, not a weapon. They show his hands were empty. They even appear to show an agent removing his legally carried firearm from his waist before he was powed at and unalived. For many, this gap between the police report and the video is a reality lived for a century. And when I say that, y'all know what I'm talking about. So we'll have to get into the connection. We have to understand that this violence does have a price tag. Just recently, Forbes revisited the data on how America's legacy of racial terror from the 1921 Tulsa massacre to today continues to systemically dismantle communities in our country. Every time a professional such as Alex Pretti is criminalized, it reinforces a landscape of fear that prevents an economic stability. We aren't just losing lives, we are losing the literal foundation of sometimes our community's future. Then we'll go ahead and get into the ancestors and the prophetic mornings. The tragedy is that we were warned about this. The words of many ancestors are proven to be true, and their solutions were very clear decades ago. We go back, if we're talking about the Black community, to 1964, when Fannie Lou Hamer stood before the Credentials Committee and asked, "Is this America?" We also look at Kwame Ture in 1966, representing the Black community as well, defining Black power not as violence, but as the psychological and physical need to control our own spaces. We look at Angela Davis in 1972, speaking from a prison cell about the nature of a political prisoner, reminding us that the state has always used the label of terrorists to silence those who stand up for others. And we also remember Dick Gregory, especially his powerful Al Jazeera dialogue, where he dismantled the insanity of the American policy. He knew that the system will always prioritize its own narrative over other races, specifically Black survival. So what is the breaking point here? In 1963, the warnings were very clear. In 2026, the warnings are still clear. The solution hasn't changed because the problem hasn't changed. The question we're asking today is if a veteran serving nurse can be executed on camera while the world is told that this person is a terrorist. When does America finally start listening to the warnings? Not just of the Black America, but America in general. They have been giving these warnings out since the 1860s, and we seem to be destined to stay in this loop forever if we do not listen to the words from our ancestors. So I'm going to go ahead, per usual, y'all, and we're going to share some videos and watch them together. I want to go ahead and tell y'all that this is going to be a trigger warning video, and viewer discretion is advised. I'm going to show y'all exactly what happened at the time of the unaliving of Alex Pretti. This is now, we don't know. The count goes on. But at least within a week's time, the second person who has been slaughtered at the hands of ICE. And we have to ask ourselves, despite our race and our skin tone and our color and what part of the big, beautiful world we reside in, as human beings, when is enough enough? How much are we going to be able to sit around and watch people being slaughtered, unalived, on camera for us all to see? It's never okay, and it has to stop. So let's go ahead and watch this video together, y'all. And like I said, viewer discretion is advised and trigger warning, because this is a sad sight to see, just like many of the other videos that we've been watching, and some, I play right here on my channel as well when we cover some of these topics. This has been happening consecutively now. People are having their lives taken away for no good reason at all. What are we going to do about this? And when is enough enough? Let's get into the video, y'all, and I will be right back.
Overnight, outrage in Minneapolis after the killing of Alex Pretti, a 37-year-old ICU nurse shot Saturday morning by a federal Border Patrol agent. Last night, protesters trying to get into a hotel in Minneapolis where they believed federal agents were staying. Authorities breaking up the crowd. Yesterday, Governor Tim Walz activating the state's National Guard and demanding federal agents leave.
That Donald Trump needs to pull these 3,000 untrained agents out of Minnesota before they kill another person.
But President Trump blaming Democrats for the unrest, writing in a lengthy post, 2 American citizens have lost their lives as a result of this Democrat-ensued chaos, referring to both Pretti and Renee Good, who was fatally shot earlier this month. Some Trump officials facing scrutiny for accusing Pretti of approaching agents with a handgun.
The officers attempted to disarm this individual, but the armed suspect reacted violently.
But at least 4 different videos of the encounter, analyzed by NBC News, appear to show Pretti with a phone in his hand in the moments before his death, attempting to come to the aid of a woman pushed to the ground by federal agents. An agent pepper sprays him before Pretti is brought to the ground. Some of the video shows an agent appearing to reach into the skirmish and remove a gun that looked like Pretti's. Then, Pretti is shot. Pretti is a U.S. citizen with no criminal record and was licensed to carry a concealed weapon, according to local officials. Pretti's family saying in a statement, "The sickening lies told about our son by the administration are reprehensible and disgusting. Alex is clearly not holding a gun when attacked by Trump's murdering and cowardly ICE thugs." Overnight, President Trump telling the Wall Street Journal his administration is reviewing everything about the shooting. When pressed, Trump did not directly answer whether the agent who shot Pretti had done the right thing. Here in Minneapolis, Pretti remembered, shown here as an ICU nurse reading a final salute.
We remember that freedom is not free.
And a memorial growing for Pretti on the street.
What do you see when you watch those videos?
An execution, an absolute execution.
And this morning, a federal judge has issued an order that blocks the Trump administration from altering or destroying any evidence relating to this shooting after local officials sued. In the meantime, in Washington, some Senate Democrats saying that they will vote to not fund the Department of Homeland Security, threatening a potential shutdown there as early as this Friday. And in an interview with the Wall Street Journal, President Trump expressing a potential willingness to withdraw federal authorities here, Savannah, saying that they have been here a while and have done a phenomenal job and will leave at some point, but not making a timeline clear as to when that will take place. Savannah.
Morgan Chesky, thank you. We want to turn now to Tom Winter, NBC's national law enforcement and intelligence correspondent. Tom, we have all these different angles on the video now, and to watch those as we're going to do here together, you also want to keep in mind what Kristi Noem, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, said Saturday, 5:30, as we look at this video. An individual, Alex Pretti, approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. The officers attempted to disarm this individual, but the armed suspect reacted violently. Do those words match the images that we've seen?
Well, it's not just a question that reporters have. I've been reached out to a number of people in law enforcement, including people who've worked for DHS, that have real concerns about those statements and the credibility of them. But we can look at this video and tell for ourselves. We're looking at it here. We're looking in that moment when the frame stops right there. It's highlighted. That's when one of the CBP officers is reaching in and grabbing the gun from him. We've got a second video that we want to show you of a little bit of the encounter leading up to it, a little bit to your points, Van. This is the slow motion now of when that 9mm Sig Sauer is pulled out from the back. Here's the second video. We can play it from here. This is a freeze frame of the moment where they come up to him. We'll get to that in just a second. You see Pretti right there, and now he's holding in his hand a phone. His left hand is clear, and so there's no weapon that's displayed at that point. And so the question is, how did this incident escalate to this point where it ended up in shots being fired? From an investigative standpoint, they'll focus on the intent. And this always comes down to this just purely from a legal standpoint. The person who fired the shots, the CBP officer who fired the shots, what was in their head? Did they believe that there was a credible threat to their life? But the gun had already been removed before we hear the shots fired on that tape.
Second deadly shooting by federal agents in less than a month there in Minneapolis. Tom, what happens next in this city? What do we know about that and where the investigation goes from here?
Well, you're seeing calls from IACP, which is a group of police executives asking for the White House to intervene and intervene now. They want a de-escalation. They want to start to get people at the table. They want local law enforcement and federal law enforcement at the table. Things need to be de-escalated between them before they can be de-escalated on the streets. And it's against city ordinance in Minneapolis for the police to go out there and set up a perimeter and push protesters back. And CBP and ICE are not really trained to be in these protest situations. It's very difficult, and as Morgan pointed out, an unusual investigation that the FBI is not going to be leading it.
It's a tinderbox right now. Tom, thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for watching. And don't forget, you can catch the Today Show every morning on NBC, or take Today when you're on the go. Just follow the Today podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.
Taxes is feeling unwelcome. Now Taxes is an open door to new TurboTax stores. Meet our experts. They do your taxes, so you can walk out with confidence. Now this is Taxes.
Click here to make your very own monster.
All right, y'all. So that was the immediate reports of exactly what happened and how everything went down. I have another video I want to show y'all from a different angle and a different report as well, just for a little bit more additional details of exactly what happened. I don't know about you guys, but I cover this stuff pretty frequently, just about every day. And as a person, as a human being, I don't know, I'm getting to a point where it's very difficult to watch people just being slaughtered and gunned down in the streets, attacked, harassed, bullied, and unalived for no reason whatsoever. And I don't think anybody should be treated like this. And I won't even use the talking point that, oh, these individuals actually weren't immigrants. They actually were American citizens. That's great. That's cool. An immigrant should not be treated like this either. And I will not stand by and allow that to happen. As far as like me just turning a blind eye to it, there's nothing that I really feel as though I can do to change it, to stop it, to make it better. I can talk about it. I can bring it to awareness. And I do have feelings and emotions about it. This is getting out of hand. And I just want to know, when does it end? When does it end? When do we have to, get to a point where we understand and we move forward and do something? Is there anything we can do? These are the questions that I have. I don't have the answers for these questions, but I'm curious about it. Let me go ahead and play this video for y'all. Okay, this is more context as to what exactly happened. This was on the 24th, which was just 2 days ago. And all of this is happening right now, not just in Minneapolis, other places, but we are seeing like a surge of these unalivings happening in Minneapolis. So we must pray for Minneapolis and the people there, because nobody deserves any of this. I don't care if they're illegal or they're here without paperwork or anything. Nobody should be treated this way. Let's keep going.
And we are seeing mounting fallout over the latest deadly shooting by federal agents in Minneapolis. This is video of the incident that appears to contradict government statements. NBC's Alice Barr explains what we know this morning.
This morning, a growing outcry over the shooting death of 37-year-old Alex Pretti by federal law enforcement in Minneapolis, the city's second involving federal law enforcement this month. As protesters react to the multiple videos capturing the scene, the Trump administration is defending the officers. The Department of Homeland Security posting that Pretti, quote, approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun.
When they tried to get him to disengage, he became aggressive and resisted them throughout that process. These officers used their training, followed their protocols, and were in fear of their lives.
The videos, shot from various angles, show federal agents shoving someone before Pretti steps in. Pretti is then pepper sprayed in the face by an officer while holding his phone, and is then wrestled to the ground. DHS said he brandished a weapon, but the videos don't appear to show that. This one does show an agent appearing to remove a gun from Pretti's back waistband seconds before the shots are fired. Local officials say Pretti had a permit to carry, and groups like the Gun Owners of America are defending his right to bear arms while protesting as top Trump officials push back.
You cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest that you want. It's that simple.
Pretti was an ICU nurse for a Minneapolis VA hospital, his parents calling him kind-hearted and deeply caring.
He loved this country, but he hated what people were doing to it.
President Trump overnight calling it a dangerous situation for everyone, demanded state and local officials cooperate with the administration's deportation efforts, as those officials call on ICE to leave the state. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
What if you can create your own website by saying, this is what I want? With Wix,
overnight, outrage in Minneapolis after the killing of Alex Pretti, a 37-year-old ICU nurse shot Saturday morning by a federal border agent. Last night, protesters trying to get into a hotel in Minneapolis where they believed federal agents were staying. Authorities breaking up the crowd. Yesterday, Governor Tim Walz activating the state's National Guard and demanding federal agents leave.
That Donald Trump needs to pull these 3,000 untrained agents out of Minnesota before they kill another person.
But President Trump blaming Democrats for the unrest, writing in a lengthy post, 2 American citizens have lost their lives as a result of this Democrat-ensued chaos, referring to both Pretti and Renee Good, who was fatally shot earlier this month. Some Trump officials facing scrutiny for accusing Pretti of approaching agents with a handgun.
The officers attempted to disarm this individual, but the armed suspect reacted violently.
But at least 4 different videos of the encounter, analyzed by NBC News, appear to show Pretti with a phone in his hand in the moments before his death, attempting to come to the aid of a woman pushed to the ground by federal agents. An agent pepper sprays him before Pretti is brought to the ground. Some of the video shows an agent appearing to reach into the skirmish and remove a gun that looked like Pretti's. Then, Pretti is shot. Pretti is a U.S. citizen with no criminal record and was licensed to carry a concealed weapon, according to local officials. Pretti's family saying in a statement, "The sickening lies told about our son by the administration are reprehensible and disgusting. Alex is clearly not holding a gun when attacked by Trump's murdering and cowardly ICE thugs." Overnight, President Trump telling the Wall Street Journal his administration is reviewing everything about the shooting. When pressed, Trump did not directly answer whether the agent who shot Pretti had done the right thing. Here in Minneapolis, Pretti remembered. Shown here as an ICU nurse reading a final salute.
We remember that freedom is not free.
And a memorial growing for Pretti on the street.
What do you see when you watch those videos?
An execution, an absolute execution.
And this morning, a federal judge has issued an order that blocks the Trump administration from altering or destroying any evidence relating to this shooting after local officials sued. In the meantime, in Washington, some Senate Democrats saying that they will vote to not fund the Department of Homeland Security, threatening a potential shutdown there as early as this Friday. And in an interview with the Wall Street Journal, President Trump expressing a potential willingness to withdraw federal authorities here, Savannah, saying that they have been here a while and have done a phenomenal job and will leave at some point, but not making a timeline clear as to when that will take place. Savannah.
Morgan Chesky, thank you. We want to turn now to Tom Winter, NBC's national law enforcement and intelligence correspondent. Tom, we have all these different angles on the video now, and to watch those as we're going to do here together, you also want to keep in mind what Kristi Noem, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, said Saturday, 5:30, as we look at this video. An individual, Alex Pretti, approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. The officers attempted to disarm this individual, but the armed suspect reacted violently. Do those words match the images that we've seen?
Well, it's not just a question that reporters have. I've been reached out to a number of people in law enforcement, including people who've worked for DHS, that have real concerns about those statements and the credibility of them. But we can look at this video and tell for ourselves. We're looking at it here. We're looking in that moment when the frame stops right there. It's highlighted. That's when one of the CBP officers is reaching in and grabbing the gun from him. We've got a second video that we want to show you of a little bit of the encounter leading up to it, a little bit to your point, Savannah. This is the slow motion now of when that 9mm Sig Sauer is pulled out from the back. Here's the second video. We can play it from here. This is a freeze frame of the moment where they come up to him. We'll get to that in just a second. You see Pretti right there, and now he's holding in his hand a phone. His left hand is clear, and so there's no weapon that's displayed at that point. And so the question is, how did this incident escalate to this point where it ended up in shots being fired? From an investigative standpoint, they'll focus on the intent. And this always comes down to this just purely from a legal standpoint. The person who fired the shots, the CBP officer who fired the shots, what was in their head? Did they believe that there was a credible threat to their life? But the gun had already been removed before we hear the shots fired on that tape.
Second deadly shooting by federal agents in less than a month there in Minneapolis. Tom, what happens next in this city? What do we know about that and where the investigation goes from here?
Well, you're seeing calls from IACP, which is a group of police executives asking for the White House to intervene and intervene now. They want a de-escalation. They want to start to get people at the table. They want local law enforcement and federal law enforcement at the table. Things need to be de-escalated between them before they can be de-escalated on the streets. And it's against city ordinance in Minneapolis for the police to go out there and set up a perimeter and push protesters back. And CBP and ICE are not really trained to be in these protest situations. It's very difficult, and as Morgan pointed out, an unusual investigation that the FBI is not going to be leading it.
It's a tinderbox right now. Tom, thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for watching. And don't forget, you can catch the Today Show every morning on NBC or take Today when you're on the go. Just follow the Today podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.
All right, y'all. So we're going to go ahead and get into the next video real quick. We're only going to play a little bit of it if we can get through it. It is not that long. It's just about 30 minutes, but still, I don't want to play anything for too long. But this is a video from Forbes, and it's called How America's Legacy of Racial Terror Still Affects Black Wealth. I wanted to play this because I want to tie into what exactly we're seeing happening right now play out. Yes, we know with other races of human beings, but this is something that has happened for a very long period of time to specifically the race of Black people, African Americans, however it is you want to call them, or call the race, because everybody got their own name or how they want to say it, or how they address it. We're talking about Black people, African American. We'll get into that. And I want y'all to see how far back that a lot of this type of treatment and a lot of these type of abuses and unfairness and unalivings have been happening for a very long period of time. like I said when I first entered into the conversation, that this is something that we're bearing witness to that is not fair when it happens to anybody of any race. But what we can be sure of is that it has been happening to Black people for a very long period of time. And when I tried to talk about it and bring that to the forefront, a lot of people just didn't care. They didn't care. They didn't believe that it was really happening, or they wanted to look the other way. When we look the other way, these type of things continue to happen, and history tends to repeat itself. This is the problem. So let's go ahead and take a little bit of a look into this video, and then we'll be moving forward.
Each pin on this map marks the location of an attack on Black Americans and their communities from the Civil War into the 1900s. It's no accident you're unlikely to find many of these in American history textbooks. There's been a concerted effort to whitewash and cover many of them up. But while some of the stories may have been scrubbed from the records and textbooks throughout history, survivors and their descendants are speaking out, shedding light on the violent events that took place in their communities and exposing the lingering social and economic damage caused by some of the worst racial violence in American history. After the American Civil War, the country entered a period known as Reconstruction, during which it set about reintegrating the Confederate States and nearly 4 million newly freed enslaved people. But African Americans were hardly given a foundation on which to build their new lives after the war. No reparations were paid to the formerly enslaved for what they and their families had endured for generations. Many had been told they'd be given a small plot of land to get started on. And while there were plans to allocate some land to the formerly enslaved after the war, such as Special Field Order Number 15, much of the land seized by Union forces or promised to African Americans was later given back to white Southern citizens, ex-slave owners, and to white Northern entrepreneurs. The following decade saw African Americans slowly gain more economic and political power. They bought land, started businesses, and built schools. But in many places where African Americans succeeded, white Americans set out to destroy that success.
A revolution. It destroyed the most powerful slave owning class in the world. And now the question is, what's going to replace it? The freed people had a clear understanding of what their freedom meant. They wanted self-determination. They wanted to reconstitute their families. They wanted to live as far away from white people as they could. They basically wanted to be left alone. But they also wanted to be citizens. And they wanted to exercise the rights that other citizens did. And so on some level, Reconstruction was designed to answer this question about the meaning of freedom. And so African Americans became citizens. Slavery is abolished with the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, nationalizes citizenship and creates due process. And so now Black people have equal protection before the law. And they can now run for office, hold office, and participate in society. It succeeded for a brief time that it existed. Black people were running for election, they were holding office, there were integrated schools. We were beginning to act and behave like a democracy. By 1877, as the North tires of Reconstruction, we see the withdrawal of troops and on some level, really the withdrawal of federal protection of Black people's rights. Just because the federal government said Reconstruction was over didn't mean that Black people stopped living their lives like free people. They continued to hold office. They continued to form these very important biracial political parties and movements. They joined interracial unions. They began to own businesses, some cases owning land. Extraordinary success in the face of a lot of violence and not much federal protection. But what happens in the 1890s is that the Southern elite decides for themselves what the meaning of freedom is going to be. They're going to strip Black people of their citizenship. White supremacy is reconstituted in the 1890s. It can't look the same as it did in slavery. And so what you end up with is disfranchisement and segregation and sharecropping and convict labor and debt peonage, but underwriting that is extraordinary violence and terror.
I like this phrase that sociologists and historians often use to describe the country in terms of race relations. And that is that this was a period they described as the nadir of race relations in America, the low point of race relations in America. And they use that language because there was this proliferation of these events that were called race riots. They were mainly assaults on Black communities. It was in New York and Philadelphia, Baltimore and Memphis and Omaha and Chicago and DC. Summer and fall of 1919 was dubbed by James Weldon Johnson, who was with the NAACP, as Red Summer. Red is a metaphorical reference to blood that flowed through the streets from all this violence post-World War I. The other thing that's happening during this period is lynching. Lynching is simply a form of domestic terrorism aimed more often than not at Black folks. The real aim is to strike fear in the hearts and minds of a group, Black folks in this case, to make sure that Black folks knew and stayed in their place. And so lynching was running rampant during this period.
The Elaine that we see today is very different from the Elaine at the time of the massacre. At the time of the massacre, it was one of the fastest growing cities and local economies in the state. The bulk of this new revenue that was coming in was from cotton sales. Cotton's at the heart of understanding what happened during the Elaine massacre. First of all, there are sharecroppers. The official name for it is debt peonage. On its surface, it seems very, very fair. Planters offer plots of their land to sharecroppers in exchange for their labor. The way the system is supposed to work is at the end of the growing season, the profits from the harvest are supposed to be split 50-50. Half going to the planter, the other half going to the laborer. However, this isn't what normally happens. There's an inherent problem when you have a planter that has to go a whole growing season and he has no income. You have to ask yourself, how does he survive? And he survives by borrowing from the planter. And this is where the plantation store comes into play. Every plantation had a plantation store. Its sharecroppers could go to that store and get items on credit. What most people don't know is that the credit offered at this store was at astronomical rates. Even when the sharecropper received his half of the shares, quite often because of these doctored books and these inflated prices, he was never able to get out of debt. And therefore, he really could not leave because he owed money. What sharecropping or debt peonage did was enable planters to have a workforce that they virtually paid nothing for. The planters would sell the cotton and quite often come back and say, well, this is all I got for it, and pay the sharecropper only a fraction of the half that he was supposed to get. This kept them in perpetual debt, and with a judicial system that was not going to allow them to leave the debt hanging, the sharecroppers were in essence made slaves. African Americans had just gone off to war. So many African Americans who had participated in the war were given promises that if they went and fought this war, they return as full-fledged citizens. So when they return to these cotton fields and they find themselves being cheated just as they had before, they believe that they have recourse. And the recourse that they believe they have now is the courts. They band together, form a union, hire an attorney, and this will be their undoing once the planters find out.
Listen up, parents. Want to
The last evening of September of 1919, there is a meeting called for the Progressive Farmers and Household Union. This was the union that the sharecroppers had formed to sue the plantation owners for their rights. Plantation owners got wind that these meetings were happening. They sent out bands of people who are also sheriffs and law enforcement, but also individuals who work on those plantations as sort of overseers. There's a shooting that occurs right outside of one of the meetings. Two of the individuals who have been sent there by the planters, two of them law enforcement agents, one is injured and one is killed. And when the report gets out of the shooting, those individuals that had gone there to razz the meeting will begin passing on messages that are totally unfounded at that point, that there was an insurrection going to take place and that this insurrection was intended to overthrow the county and displace white rule there. The response to that report will be that hundreds of individuals will pour in from neighboring counties. The white American Legion that had just been established months before would be deputized. These men are sent out to arrest the Union members. And there's a shootout when they return and try to arrest them. From DC, orders will come to the governor and to military bases there that 500 troops will be mobilized and sent in by the federal government. Even though the sharecroppers are arrested, this isn't enough to stop the mobs that have already been called in. They begin shooting at any Black person that they saw. Many Blacks will begin hiding in the swamps or hiding in thickets. These men in small groups will begin hunting them out. They saw the military trains arrive, and when the troops came looking for Blacks, they assumed that they were there to help them. So Blacks began coming out of the woods and going toward the soldiers and were shot down, some of them by machine gunners. The governor himself raced over in a car to try to be there for the photo ops and to participate.
My grandfather said they were surrounding people and they was, shooting first and asking questions, even with women and children. They lost friends in the massacre because all of them stayed in the area. And when people came, they were just shooting everybody. They wasn't, you got seen, you got shot.
Everything was just shoot to kill, shoot to kill. And then I was told that when they had killed the Black, a ditch was dug and they all were thrown into that ditch as one big lump sum, not a grave, not a burial, but all were thrown in a ditch.
Their homes were formerly slave cabins that are on the property or shanties that had been largely established by the planters and weren't owned by them. What we see is looting of these cabins, the taking of the little livestock they have, and the taking of property that belonged to them. We do not know how many people were killed. There has never been a single grave that has been discovered or recovered. People had to make a conscious decision whether you stayed and you continued to work or whether you fled. And a great number of people fled after this event.
According to some descendants, as residents fled the town and surrounding Phillips County, they were forced to leave behind land they owned, which was then stolen by white residents, some of whom perpetrated the massacre. While evidence of Black land ownership in and around Elaine from the time period has been difficult to find, some Black descendants claim that's because a lot of the documents were likely destroyed. What is clear is that a consistent oral history of land theft has been passed down through generations of Black residents of Phillips County.
We ain't got no proof, but we do have the oral stories. And if you listen to the oral stories, all of them assisted. People can't make this stuff up. If you listen to these stories, you cannot make this up.
The families of plantation owners have made themselves considerably wealthy from the cotton boom that took place there and the generations that were able to either exploit slavery or exploit Black labor through debt peonage. But there was no profit and there was no gain for the individuals who actually were out there doing the work. And now, like the old hedge clippers, they've all been discarded, forgotten, left behind. And that's where Elaine is today. It has some of the highest poverty rates in the country, high unemployment rates. It's riddled with health issues, poor drinking water. There is no school in the town. They have to bus their children out.
It's a lot of money here, but there's no generation wealth for Black people. When the killing was over, all the wealth for Black people just went away.
Going to Elaine is like going to the end of the world. There's only one way in and one way out.
If there is a God, he must be the greatest mathematician of all time, because
One of the ironies about Oklahoma is that it comes late into statehood, 1907, and it had been promoted even by Black folks as kind of a promised land, a Beulah land, a land of opportunity, because it had not come into statehood and there were diverse folks here, including natives. There were calls for Black folks to come to Oklahoma to get away from the Deep South and the rigid segregation that existed there. Tulsa really transitioned from sort of a dusty Western outpost to a much more cosmopolitan city at the turn of the 20th century, primarily attributable to the discovery of oil. Tulsa was a segregated city, as were many cities during this period. The Black community sat just north of the Frisco tracks. Black folks were segregated into this geographic area, but they actually leveraged segregation to create an economic enclave that was very successful because folks were, based on the constraint of segregation, forced to trade with and do business with one another. It became an enclave of not just entrepreneurs and business folks, but a bunch of professionals, doctors, lawyers, dentists, accountants, etc. And there were economic successes throughout the country in these segregated Black neighborhoods and some beyond the confines of segregation. Oklahoma, in the run-up to statehood, becomes really a bastion of the same kind of white supremacist notions that existed in the Deep South. The massacre was caused by a number of things. The Greenwood District, the Black community in Tulsa, sat on land that was desired by industrialists, including railroad executives. We also have to think about white supremacy and the psychological dynamics that were operative, not just in Tulsa, but throughout the United States. In Tulsa, you have kind of an extreme example because you have Black wealth in this segregated community that abuts downtown Tulsa, white Tulsa. If you're a white person, you could literally stand on the Frisco tracks and look over into North Tulsa and see Black folks who were driving nice cars, owning their own homes, having their own businesses. And that was, in my estimation, the cause for cognitive dissonance. Black folks were faring much better economically in Tulsa than many white folks thought they should be. Another factor was the KKK. The Ku Klux Klan, an iconic domestic terrorist organization which had a foothold in Oklahoma throughout the 1920s. Tulsa was no exception. Add to that the media. One particular media outlet called the Tulsa Tribune, a daily afternoon newspaper, published a series of incendiary articles and editorials that really fomented hostility in the white community against the Black community during the run-up to the massacre. And that's the context. Those are the atmospherics of Tulsa as we talk about May 31st and June 1st, the days of the massacre. The incident began with an elevator incident. There was a Black boy whose name was Dick Rowland, 19 years old, who shined shoes for a living. He needed to use the restroom one morning. This is May 30th. Facilities available for his use were limited because of segregation. He knew that there was such a facility on the third floor of the downtown Drexel building. He has to take the elevator up to the third floor. Elevators back then are manually operated. A young white girl named Sarah Page is manually operating this elevator. Something happened on the elevator. We don't know exactly what it was. We'll never know, likely. But it likely was that he bumped into or brushed up against Sarah Page. Some say he stepped on her foot. In any event, she overreacted. She began screaming. The elevator landed back in the lobby. Dick Rowland, frightened, as well he probably should be given the circumstances, frightened, ran from the elevator. Sarah Page is distraught. She exits the elevator. She's comforted by a clerk from Renberg's, which is a locally owned store. He's concerned about her. She talks about being assaulted on the elevator. He calls the police. She ultimately recants the original story, refuses to cooperate with prosecutors after Dick Rowland has been arrested. Unfortunately, by the time the recantation occurs, it's too late. It's too late in part because the Tulsa Tribune published an article the next day. It's entitled "Nab Negro for Attacking Girl in an Elevator," painting it as an attempted rape in broad daylight. There's language in that article that clearly is intended to make Sarah Page look more virtuous. The corollary effect of which is to make Dick Rowland look more villainous. And it has its desired effect. A large mob of white men began to gather. Dick Rowland had been arrested by this time by the sheriff, put in jail, was set atop the courthouse. White men gathered on the lawn of the courthouse. Ultimately, the white mob numbered in the thousands. The sheriff was so concerned that he actually called down to the offices of the Tulsa Star, the black newspaper. He knew that there would be black men gathered there, and told him what had transpired, that Dick Rowland was arrested, that he was being held in jail, that he was safe, he's being protected. But he was concerned because he was hearing this lynch talk among this large and growing white mob. A number of black men, several dozen in number, some of them World War I veterans with weapons who knew how to use them, marched down to the courthouse intent on protecting Dick Rowland from what they thought would be a certain lynching. They were confronted by the larger white mob. As you might imagine, words were exchanged. A white man tried to take a black man's gun and got discharged. And in the words of some of the massacre survivors, all hell broke loose after that. The so-called riot was on, and it resulted in the devastation of the Greenwood community. Many people in the white mob, many of these men, were actually deputized by local law enforcement. They affirmatively prevented the fire department from putting.
All right, y'all. So as you can see, as I'm playing this video, and I guess some people may be wondering, like, I'm not really getting it. I'm not understanding. Why I'm playing this is because I want you to hear this history. I want you to hear these experiences that happened through over, a period of time. And I want you to compare this to what we're seeing and bearing witness to almost each and every day right now. And I want you to ask yourself, does it seem like history is repeating itself? What do you think, Mom?
I think so. It looks exactly the same.
Same reason? Yeah.
Government arming them and telling them it's okay for them to do what they're going to do.
Right.
Let them do what they're going to do. Let them destroy a whole community. Let them blow up everything, kill people with no regard or anything. And that's the same thing that's happening in Minnesota and Minneapolis. And if we can't see that, then we have to be blind that it's the very same thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's the very same
But I
thing.
guess it's appearing to look different now
It's different
because
now
it seems
because-
as though they're after a different race.
Yeah,
of
a
people.
different race. And they're, I'll say this with sensitivity. I don't believe that Caucasians ever thought that this would affect them, but it is.
And that is because they're actually trying to stand up for what's right and help.
And that's what
assist.
they were doing. That's what they were doing, standing up for what's right and trying to help
And they're
protect
falling
people.
victim to the same
And
abuse.
they're falling victim to it too.
Right. Let's keep going.
Out the fires that raged. Planes flew over the Greenwood community, privately owned planes. And according to eyewitness, dropped incendiary devices, bombs on the community that caused the flames to burn more brilliantly and spread more rapidly. The National Guard was ultimately called in to quell the violence, which they did on the afternoon of June 1st, 1921, the next day.
Eve to me is basically freedom. It's a giant open universe where you
The official death toll is 37. Nobody who's studied these events believes that to be true. It's more likely within a range of 100 to 300. At least 1,250 homes in the Black community were destroyed as well, as were a number of churches, schools, business places, and other commercial establishments. The Red Cross provided relief immediately post-massacre, Food, Shelter, Clothing, by all accounts, did a wonderful job. Black folks, particularly Black men, were rounded up and taken to internment centers throughout the city for a temporary period. It was ostensibly for their own protection, but according to survivors, it left the community essentially defenseless and unprotected. So looters came in and pillaged homes of finery like jewelry and expensive items that some of the more wealthy residents of the community had owned.
The Tulsa and Elaine massacres were not isolated incidents. They were just two of many, and they were representative of a broad backlash to the social status of Black people in the United States. The goal of attacks like these, historians say, was to maintain white supremacy by any means necessary. And the effects of these attacks on Black communities can still be seen and felt today.
Some people will say, well, slavery ended years ago, or even, segregation ended years ago. That's in the past. Why are you dredging up the past? Well, the past isn't the past. And I think of my whole body of research that I've done, looking at different events all across the world, you find this over and over and over, that the effects of the past linger and they have consequences. And in general, if these events are historically important enough, they shape the way the world is today. After learning about the Tulsa massacre and reading a bit about it and realizing we don't have a lot of hard statistical evidence about what the consequences were, that's basically where I came in, is just wanting to know what were the consequences of the Tulsa massacre. So immediately after the massacre, we find that Black household heads who owned homes fell by 4.5 percentage points. And then if you think of another measure of that is, are you an individual that's living in a home that's owned by someone in your family? That measure of homeownership fell by 6.3 percentage points. And the other thing that we find is decline in occupational status. And one measure of occupational status is to look at, is an individual working in a white collar occupation? There's a 3.1% chance that you're in a white collar occupation. Then after the massacre, that figure falls by 2.3 percentage points. So that's a huge, huge effect.
All right, y'all. So as we're watching that video, y'all can see the comparison in what has happened historically and what is happening now. Okay, so we're talking about the parallel, and what I like to call it is the war on foreigners. Just a second. Okay, I'm back, y'all. Sorry about that. So I call it, and what I see it as, is the war on foreigners, okay? This is a pattern of attacking success. Isn't reserved just for Black America alone. We are seeing history repeat itself in the vicious attacks on immigrant communities. This is a segment of this country that cannot stand to see foreign people succeeding, owning homes, and living good lives. In 1882, it was the Chinese Exclusion Act. In 1924, it was the Johnson-Reed Act. Both were designed to stop people from other places from thriving here. Today, the rhetoric is the same. They call it protecting the border, but it's really about protecting a hierarchy that says only some people are allowed to succeed, whether you're from North Minneapolis or North Africa. If you thrive, you become a target. That's what it seems to me, allegedly. Now, again, as I'm playing these videos, I'm playing it for context, y'all. Context. And I'm playing it for comparisons. So you can be able to see that history does tend to repeat itself. A lot of what we already experienced and have seen as people, not just me, I'm Black, my ancestors and whatnot, Black people, but also other races of people we're seeing in this country now. It seems as though they're trying to ice us out. Look at that. ICE. Yeah, it seems as though they're trying to ice us out squeeze us out and push us out in any way necessary. And it's not just that they want to detain you and put you on a bus somewhere and ship you to wherever they think you supposedly come from. Now they're even going to the lengths of taking your life. So, you know, this is history repeating itself. When I watch it, that's what I'm seeing.
It's 66% decline in white collar occupations. That result is controlling for, taking into account everything else that's going on in the economy and also between different racial groups. But it's not just in Tulsa, but we see these effects in other parts of the country as well. So we look at newspapers all across the US and basically look and see, are they covering the massacre in the days right after? And what we find is where there is more intensity of coverage about the massacre, the effects that we find in Tulsa, we also find in those communities as well.
Welcome to the next generation of website creation.
We know that there's a thing such as generational wealth. There's also generational poverty. What we found in working through the Justice for Greenwood Foundation and our work with our survivors and descendants is that this generational poverty or generational lack of opportunity started with the massacre. And let's talk about Viola Fletcher. After the massacre, and Mother Fletcher had to flee for her life with her family to Claremore to live in an impoverished state, she was not able to go back and finish school. And it caused her lots of problems in life. For most of her life, she was a domestic worker, working for pennies, working for white families that treated her less than they treated their dogs. You know, Leslie Benefield Randall, also a little girl at the time, only 6 years old, but she was in town with her grandmother, Molly Benefield. And obviously during the massacre, she's a young lady. She says she can't remember a lot, but she does remember running. She does remember them coming to the door saying, the blacks need to get out. The white people are killing all the black, particularly the black men. She remembers being taken to the fairgrounds, which was one of the places they put our people in those, what they called at the time, concentration camps. Hughes Van Ellis, we call him Uncle Red. And obviously he was a baby. He was an infant at the time of the massacre. I think he was 6 months old. Hughes Van Ellis and Viola Fletcher are brother and sister. They lived a lot of his childhood outside. I mean, they basically lived in like a tent. They basically had to survive off the land. And it was very traumatizing for him and something that shaped his life.
A 2018 study from the American Journal of Economics and Sociology estimated that if 1,200 median-priced houses in Tulsa were destroyed today, the loss would be around $150 million. The additional loss of other assets, including cash, personal belongings, and commercial property, might bring the total to over $200 million.
So the Greenwood community, as a business community, was destroyed as a testament to the resilience and the indomitable human spirit that was endemic in the community. The community was fully rebuilt, began to really boom, peaking in the early to mid-1940s. That continued throughout the 50s, began to decline in the 60s.
All right, y'all. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and take another quick song break, and we will move on from this video. And as you can see, like I said, we're going to be talking about a little bit of the commentary that I thought was amazing and excellent from Jemele Hill. And that's basically what she's talking about. I wanted to show y'all a little bit of historical things so you can understand with this commentary that she's going to make exactly where she's coming from and what she's talking about. And, you know, we have to be fair that there will be some individuals and stuff that do have some talking points that really are trying to drive the situation home for people to really fully understand and the severity that it really is in. When it comes to what we're seeing going on now, yes, we don't want to see anybody from any race going through these things. But there was a long period of time, and even to this day still, there is a lot of mistreatment and a lot of unfairness, unaliving, abuse, all of those things that happens towards Black or African American people. And so now that it's happening to other races and groups of people or nationalities of people, there are some, Black or African American people that are saying that basically, they were screaming to the top of their lungs, trying to tell people this is how it is in this world, in this country. This is how we're being treated. These are the things that we're going through and we're experiencing. But it seems like when we were going through and experiencing these things, there wasn't enough care, there wasn't enough sympathy or empathy for individuals that were Black experiencing these type of struggles in this same type of way. And so there are some Black people that feel like, where was, the Calvary? Where was the protest? Where was the support and the love and the empathy and understanding when Black people were going through it? A lot of people just set aside or turned a blind eye to it and didn't care. And so we do have a sector and a section of Black people that feel, and this is not really the right way to be, but they just feel like, they're not going to pick up their feet, they're not going to pick up their signs and march and protest and try to defend or care when other races of people are going through these experiences, because nobody seemed to care when their ancestors and they were going through these experiences and still do to this day. So there's, a side of talking points when it comes to that. There are still some individuals that do feel that way and have made that very verbal. I'm not one of those individuals, but we'll get into it, y'all. Let's take this quick song break and we'll be right back. And you'll hear a little bit more of exactly what it is that I'm trying to say. I will let Jemele say it because, she speaks a lot better than I do. And so we'll get into that video in just a moment, y'all. Give me just a sec. We'll take a song break and be right back.
The beef, you want the who said what, but when the blood is in the street, you keep your big mouth shut. You run the numbers up for clicks on every toxic lil, but skip the stream about the kids who barely can survive. You're addicted to the circus dancing for $1 bill, while experimenting on us popping every kind of pill. Algorithm got you trapped, a digital lobotomy. You'd rather watch a dummy tech than learn about autonomy. Low vibrations, yeah, that's all you crave. Mind of a zombie, walking to the grave. Talk about the spirit, talk about the fight. You vanish like a ghost, you're disappearing in the night. Dumbass zombies, sleepers in the cell. Build your own prison in this digital hell. Low vibration. We moving on. Hypertext is boring, spiritual rarity is deep. That's exactly what they wanted, just to keep your soul asleep. They shout down when I good. They're hunting for the press, and you're arguing in comments about a rapper summer dress. It's a war on your mind, it's a war on your health, but you're too busy scrolling, giving stupid all your wealth. I'm a golden queen, I'm 10 toes down in the mud, while you're chasing cloud and spilling everybody's blood. Are you a fan of your own destruction? Is the gossip worth your soul? Unplug the wire, debate the self. Mama Warrior told you. Now bring it back. Low vibrations, yeah, that's all you crave. Mind of a zombie, walking to the grave. Talk about the spirit, talk about the fight. You vanish like a ghost, you're disappearing in the night. Dumbass zombies, sleepers in the cell. Build your own prison in this digital hell. Let's go, vibrations. Yeah. Numbers drop when the truth gets loud, but I'd rather have a few than a brainless crowd. It's a veil to the world, high frequency only. Mama, warrior, golden queen.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Politics Live. I'm trying something a little bit different in the sense of I am actually going live right now not only on Instagram, but also going live on Facebook. And Facebook is a place that I have to be honest, I've kind of abandoned, or just because, you know, that Facebook still has a lot of reach. Boards are up here on my desk. We also then saw a collective government cover up to make this man, to call him a terrorist, for Stephen Miller, one of the worst people in the world, for him to refer to this man as a domestic terrorist, for Kristi Noem to continue to disparage this man after what was done to him it would be inconceivable if I were talking about anybody else, but we literally just saw them do this a couple of weeks ago when it came to Renee Good, the mother of 3, who in Minneapolis was shot in her face multiple times by an ICE agent. So it's not that we have seen this before, we've seen it repeatedly. The difference is now, while there's this collective shock and awe by a certain group of folks, and by a certain group of folks, I mean mostly white people, is because they are now suffering the level of violence and subjected to the state violence that Black people have been subjected to since we got here. So for us, this is just America on default. For them, it's, oh my God, this is America? I can't believe this is actually happening. We saw George Floyd murdered in the street. It was the same thing that killed George Floyd, is the same thing that killed Alex Pretti. The only one was the Minneapolis Police Department. This was ICE. Same construct, same foundation of white supremacy. And I don't know if you guys have thought about the irony of how the police in Minneapolis are now appalled and standing with citizens at the behavior of ICE. And while that's a very good thing, and certainly not every police officer is bad, I feel like I have to constantly give that disclaimer. I know there are good law enforcement people out there, but it's in a rotten system. And you cannot bear good fruit when the system itself is rotten. And to hear the Minneapolis police talk about how they are standing with the people of Minneapolis against this rogue law enforcement unit in ICE, I hope they do some self-reflection. Not just them, but any police department, any law enforcement looking in on this situation in Minneapolis. Because a lot of the things that ICE does and ICE is doing, a lot of the things that citizens have caught on video are the same things we've seen the police do time and again to people who are Black and brown. So I feel like when the Minneapolis police, and let's be real about the reason that they came out in opposition to ICE is because some of their officers who are Black and brown were being subjected to the same treatment as the citizens. That is why. The American police, I hope you use this opportunity to look in the mirror, because a lot of what you're seeing as ICE is exactly what we see when we see you. Again, not everybody, but you got the same track record they do. It's not that different. What has been really frustrating, and this is the thing about awakenings, right, is awakenings are generally good. I know me, I'm a person that when I get new information that changes my opinion, I say, okay, I got new information. This is changing my opinion. This is making me think differently. I'm bringing a different perspective for this issue. The problem is that I feel like we keep having the same conversation with white America over and over again. And I don't know if we have to keep having this conversation because they're disinterested. I don't know what the reason is. But why is it so many times? Because I can think of many times just in my lifetime. So I can only imagine how someone older than me might feel. But why do we keep having the conversation of where we have to tell them again what really happens in this country? Like at this point, there's too much information. At this point, they should have seen many of the same things that we have. Why do we feel like we constantly have to get white America up to speed about what is happening in America from a racial standpoint? And so I don't understand why we have to keep doing this. Frankly, I refuse to. And I dropped this a long time ago. It's been a few years. I said, I refuse now to educate white people about Black people or educate white people about racism in this country. Not doing it anymore. I know there are some well-intentioned white folks out there who want to learn and want to understand how they can be of help and of assistance, of which I welcome that. But you got to do the legwork. You can't be relying on us all the time to try to tell you what's what. You're more community with your people than we are. You don't have conversations with your mothers, fathers, grandfathers, uncles, aunties talk about race. I mean, you don't? How do you not? You keep looking to Black people to solve the problem and looking to us when I'm like, oh no, we didn't create that. We didn't create the construct of race. We didn't create white supremacy. We need you to go back, talk to your cousins and them, talk to your uncles, your aunties, your relatives, have that hard conversation with them. And so I think what you sense is a level of frustration that we may feel, and it's hard to blame us. So when we hear people saying now, mostly white people, saying, this isn't the America I know, it literally makes us want to tear our fucking hair out. Even if we bald-headed, we want to tear it out like, what? What do you mean? And so from that standpoint, just to lighten it up slightly before I get back into the thick of things, this is why, I don't know if you guys saw it, but Teyana Taylor, the Oscar nominee, she hosted Saturday Night Live. And I thought this skit that she did here with Kenan Thompson was brilliant, and y'all will know why.
Minneapolis, where ICE continues to raid homes and businesses in what some people are calling an occupation. Christopher, your take on this?
Well, Michelle, the first word that comes to mind is unprecedented. I mean, you've got federal officers roaming the streets, just pulling people out of their cars based on how they look. I mean, this just doesn't happen in America. Yeah, well, I mean, I know it happens with some police. There are certainly bad cops out there, of course, but this is an entire federal force weaponized against the people it's supposed to protect. It's insane. Okay, right, sure. Okay, but the difference here is these officers are marching through neighborhoods with the express mission of just stirring things up so they can violently arrest people. That's new. Okay, I mean, you guys know what I mean, though. Can someone else go, please?
We have got to the point where literally anybody can build a fully working app without.
I mean, that skit was perfect because I think it nailed how a lot of us feel. So right now, when we hear that, we hear some, white people saying, some of them on television, some of them positing themselves as experts, saying things like, I can't believe that is happening here, or I've never seen this before, as if racial terror hasn't been a part of this country for the longest of time. It has been, because as much as they want to pin everything every level of dehumanization of Black people to just slavery, they seem to forget how long it continued. My mother was born in 1957. That means that when my mother was born, the Civil Rights Act hadn't even passed yet. So not only was it slavery, then it was 80 or 90 years of Jim Crow. Then coming out of that, because we had the Civil Rights Movement, then even after that, it was mass incarceration, the war on drugs, the whole prison industrial complex. Like, we have seen this. It just goes by a different name sometimes, but we have literally.
Amazing commentary. Amazing commentary. I really always love the commentary from Jemele Hill. I really do. But, you know, just to even tie into that a little bit more, exactly what she's talking about, to get a further understanding of it, I want y'all to listen to this conversation right here real quick. I'm going to play this for you. This is Black Leaders Discussion. This is Angela Davis. This is Kwame Ture. And this is Fannie Lou Hamer. Okay, and this is from 1973. So I want you guys to listen to this conversation and listen to how it ties into exactly what Jemele is talking about. They're going to tell you from their experience and their time frame within the 70s. We're talking about 1973. These are Black leaders that's having this conversation. Let's listen.
I'm Tony Brown, executive producer of Black Journal. Welcome to Black Leaders 73. This program has been pre-recorded, and you will not be able at this time to phone in any questions. The questions that you hear were directed in some instances to specific panelists, and in other instances they were not. Some of the panelists had not been advertised, and we do not have a number of questions for them. However, they have been encouraged to answer any questions, no matter to whom they're directed. For the next 90 minutes, we will present an unedited two-way communication system between you and our Congress of Black spokesmen. We will be using television as an instrument of positive social reform, allowing Black America to question members of her leadership and make herself heard collectively. Our guests are Judge William Booth, President, American Committee on Africa; Hayward Burns, National Director, National Conference of Black Lawyers; Berkeley Burrell, President, National Business League; Stokely Carmichael, All African People's Revolutionary Party; Angela Davis, National United Committee to Free All Political Prisoners; Fannie Lou Hamer, Director, Mississippi Freedom Farm Corporation; Nelson Johnson, National Chairman, Youth Organization for Black Unity; William Lucy, International Secretary Treasurer, American Federation of Federal, State, County, and Municipal Employees, and the Chairman of the Steering Committee of the Coalition of Black Trade Unionists; the Honorable Percy Sutton, President of the Borough of Manhattan; the Honorable Louis Stokes, Democrat of Ohio and Chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus; Cindy J. Williams, Jr., President, National Association of Black Social Workers; and James D. Williams, National Urban League. One of our panelists was unable to be with us and wired us his regrets. The following telegram is from Mr. Stanley Scott, Special Assistant to the President of the United States. I will now read his telegram. Deeply regret that I must cancel my appearance on your show because of an assignment recently given me on behalf of the President. I would welcome the pleasure of being your guest at a later date. With every best wishes for a very successful show, Stanley S. Scott, Special Assistant to the President. Indeed, there are many other Black spokesmen, but our physical and technical capabilities have limited us. We do want the public to understand that our Black leadership does include persons not on this panel. To continue to expose more of our leaders, we have invited a different group from our 1972 version. In selecting tonight's panel, we attempted to bring together a diversity of positions and philosophies, held together by the common thread of concern for all Black people. May we now have our first question.
Black Leader 73, I have to tell you that we are recording your question, and we need your permission to record it and to edit it and to put it on the air.
You have my permission to do that. My name is Carl Smith from Lawton, Oklahoma. A pluralistic society in which all ethnic and racial minorities try to contribute to the mainstream and still retain their cultural identity is often advocated as a desirable goal for our country. My question is it a realistic goal? Is it possible? And if not, why?
If you didn't understand that question, I can read it to you again. He said, a pluralistic society in which all ethnic and racial minorities try to contribute to the mainstream and still retain their cultural identity is often advocated as a desirable goal for our country. My question is it a realistic goal? Is it possible? And if so, and if not, why?
That's one of the diversities, I guess, that we have among Black people. I hate to say Black leaders because I don't think of ourselves as Black leaders. I don't think any people need leaders. We are working in the field and we're doing our job. But there is the diverse opinion. Some folks believe that you can work within the system and you can make the system work for you. Others believe you can't work within the system, you've got to have something else. I happen to be one of those who believes that although we have not progressed as we should have, and the great masses of the people have not at all been able to use their inner talents, the talents they've got and that have been hidden by reason of cultural bias and examinations and all the rest that's happened to us through the years, that although the masses of the people have not tasted the success that is available here in this country, still I believe that it is possible. If I didn't believe it was possible to work within the system and to retain my own cultural identity in spite of what's happening, I would have to give up my job. I'd have to give up my various positions and organizations that I belong to. I'd have to say, well, down with all organizations connected with this government. But I look upon this government as being one of men who can be changed if there's enough pressure put upon them, and if the numbers that we've got together, that Black people have and related people have in this country, we put our numbers together, we can overcome the forces against us. Otherwise, I couldn't exist in this country that way.
I would think that what our brother Judge Booth said is correct. The only question would be, what kind of change do we want? I think everybody would be for that society. The question is whether or not it could come about under the present system of this government, or whether that system must be changed. I, for one, believe that it cannot come about under the present system, a capitalist system. That system must be changed. I believe that. And I think that if we have the same objectives, then it doesn't make a difference where we work. As a matter of fact, a man working to change the system with that objective in mind can do very much inside the system, once he doesn't lose sight of his objective. An example that comes to mind is that a few years ago, it was found out that one of the advisors for President Thieu was working for the Viet Cong.
I do think that we make a mistake if we talk about this in terms of absolute doctrines. We talk about it in terms of Black people and integration, or Black people and separation. It seems to me that that's a false dichotomy that has been set up in terms of the way in which the debate is discussed. The real issue I feel for Black people is one of empowerment and one of redefinition of the way in which Black and white people are interacting in society. I feel that's what we must be about.
Well, I think that if you consider the fact that this system, this capitalist system under which we're living today, is designed in such a way that nobody except a privileged few can attempt to express themselves or contribute to anything, there's no doubt about the fact that we have to talk about revolutionizing the system before anybody can live in any kind of human fashion together. I would just like to point out the fact that I have seen with my eyes societies where people of different colors have learned how to live together, each maintaining their own cultural identity, but each fighting to build and to continue to construct a socialist revolution together. I was in Cuba not very long ago, and I saw with my own eyes how Black people, brown people, and white people have reached the point where they can work in harmony towards the building of a socialist society.
Any other responses?
Let me just maybe add to what Brother Brown said over there just a moment ago. I think the key question is that certainly it's a good idea to work toward a total input by all, I suppose, ethnic groups in our society, blacks and what have you. But the key thing is whether or not you have a sufficient amount of power within yourselves to affect the system when the system is working against your vested interest. In school some years ago, we were taught to think of America as a melting pot, and I think the current administration has proven that there are ethnics who are unmeltable, because even though they are invisible, they are still there to identify with their own vested interests as a people. I think as black people, we've got to become concerned, first of all, with what our vested interest is in either preserving the system or changing the system. And once we make that determination, then the direction that we have to take is clear for us. For instance, if you look at the various arms or branches of government, they represent different interests, yet there is none that represents our interests. For instance, the business interest is represented by a branch. You will never find that branch, going contrary to what the interest of business happens to be. Yet there's the labor interest, and only here lately have we found some differences there. But every segment of our society that represents a power, lever is represented there, except people, and particularly black people. And I think we should be about the business of coming together, not in specifics as to what our interests and goals are, but certainly in generalities in terms of what we need to exist in this society.
Let me ask a question about your comment. Would it be correct to infer from your comments that you would suggest some attachment of a power mechanism for black people to the governmental apparatus as a solution to the empowerment of black people?
I think what I'm getting at is the acquiring of power within the black people themselves to affect the system in any way it needs to be affected in order to produce on behalf of the interests of black people. I'm not saying we should have a black agency. That's not what I was referring at all. I'm saying that every other ethnic group in our society has, by some means or other, acquired the power to move out of their depressed or oppressed situation, with the exception of black and brown. I think what I'm saying is that whatever that power has to be to move the government or move local structures, that's what we need to be about. And I think that this vested interest should be the basis of our movement.
America really is an ethnic society. And I live here in New York now, though I come from Texas, and New York has always been talked about as a melting pot. It really isn't a melting pot. We have Jews, we have Italians, we have blacks, we have Puerto Ricans, a variety of other cultures that live side by side with each other, not always happy with each other. But if we're talking about change, whether it's a change of the style of the government or an absolute change in the nature of the government to a socialist society or whatever other society, I think a thing that is fundamental to it, if we as black people are going to talk about change, one of the first things we need to do is develop some unity within ourselves. Now, that doesn't mean that all black people have to speak the same language or have the same philosophy, but we have to learn to communicate, and I think we are, in a large measure, learning to communicate with each other. And we've got to develop coalitions with others because we're a small minority. We have great power, however, if we can unite our minority with other minorities, because there are other groups of people who would wish to move in the same direction as we wish. So it doesn't make me any difference whether we're going, if I thought tomorrow we could stage the revolution and the revolution would succeed, I would give leadership to it. That is, a revolution by whatever method. But at this structure in our development, I believe the kind of revolution that is going to take place is a social revolution without bloodshed. And if this is to be so, one of the first things that must be accomplished is that black people, poor people, must unite themselves and then join forces with others.
Now, Harlem has been a barometer for a number of years of perhaps black feeling across the country in terms of mood. What direction do you see the mood in Harlem going in?
I'm not too sure that Harlem has been the mood of the country. Harlem is one of the most volatile places in the country. When I travel to other places, I'm amazed at the amount of unity. We have unity in Harlem, unity in one thing, that we're different. Many of us are different. We have more nationalist organizations. We have all of the organizations you want to perceive of. many of them have their facets in Harlem. No, I don't think Harlem is the mood. Harlem is a very sophisticated place. Sophisticated in the sense that we all understand the need for others of us to exist. So I could not use it as the barometer of America. But if it should be the barometer of America, I think it would be good. But I'm afraid that it is not.
Mrs. Hamer, do you see changes since you're from right in the middle of the rural South, do you see any trend there in terms of Black people moving toward unity, moving away from unity? Just generally, what is going on in your area of the country?
Well, I do see more unity because the power structures in the South are forcing us to have more unity. You know, there have been a class split with the Black community. That's being moved because we are finding out whether you middle class or no class is no different. As long as we Black, we in the same boat. And that's forcing us to be together. Because, you know, we've seen what is happening in our schools. You know, like if a principal was a principal and was moved and become assistant principal, his job, if he's Black, automatically, if he becomes assistant principal, his job automatically is to carry toilet tissue from one school to the other one and load up the bus. So he's finding that it's no different in us, and it's forcing us to get together. And I think that the change will come because we have to, there's nothing handed to us on a silver platter, and we have to work together for a change in the South.
Congressman.
All right, y'all. So I have the link to that video if you want to listen to the entire conversation. It's a really good one. On your own accord. I just got to move along with the live, y'all, because y'all know I be dragging it out kind of long, and I don't want to make it too long. But now I want to go ahead and get into this next video. The videos that I'm playing, they tie into one another. So I want y'all to listen, but I also want you to pay attention and watch, right? So this video that I'm going to show you guys, this is going to be one that is going to have imagery. And this is a conversation from Dick Gregory, okay? I want y'all to pay attention, not to just what he's saying, but I want you to pay attention to some of the imagery at the time when he was saying these things, and these things were happening. And look how similar what we see in this video looks like what we see today. Let's go ahead and get into it.
A white guy killed my Jesus, and they taught me to call it a good day.
Civil rights activist and Missouri native Dick Gregory has been calling attention to race relations in the U.S. for decades. But the shooting death of a young Black man on the streets of Ferguson, Missouri, is evidence, he says, that a strong Black-white divide still exists in America.
Here's a town that used to be mostly white, and now 70% Black. White mayor, white police chief, anything important is white.
Gregory is uniquely placed to provide historical perspective. He was shot in the leg in the 1965 Los Angeles Watts riots, but he hasn't used violence to project his message. He's used comedy. Gregory was a headline performer.
When America goes to war, they don't send no comics. They send some folks that barely can read and write. What?
At 81 years old and a father to 10, Dick Gregory reflects on his past and the legacy his children will inherit. We spoke in Washington, D.C. You got into the civil rights struggle early on. Could you have imagined, had I whispered into the ears of your 20-something-year-old self, that about 6 decades later, we'd still be having these same arguments?
Let me answer this way. 120 years ago, if you was at a meeting and say one day horses will be obsolete, they'd put you in the mental hospital. It's the same. You couldn't see this. You couldn't see this, especially Black folks couldn't see it. We're the only group of people that had the struggle, the visions that we went through. And and we opt for education over liberation. When George Washington was fighting the British, it wasn't so he could build a college, it's liberate. So all the black folks you see in America has never been liberated. You get a white cop, can kill my mama, my daddy, my children, but in the news media, if you check, a white cop ain't never hit my car, not my automobile.
But when you look back, and I've been looking back because of the 50th anniversary of the Poor People's Campaign. I have seen a lot of black and white film and a handsome, skinny young Dick Gregory in a white shirt and a skinny black tie.
That was me.
Talking about hope, about a belief in the future, about a belief in this country being willing to release its grasp and grant black people full human and civil rights. There had to have been a certain optimism in the tank for those things to go on in the late 50s, in the early 60s.
Yeah, but that's because we never been liberated. We talk as a group of people that's educated but not liberated. And George Washington didn't have that many educated people with him, a bunch of thugs, but they wanted to be liberated. And the song don't say, give me education or give me liberty or give me death.
But let's talk more about that dichotomy that you're pointing out between education and liberation. Yeah. A lot of the wise old heads who got all that stuff started said that the two went hand in hand. They wanted the HBCs filled with tomorrow's doctors and dentists and preachers.
A black PhD right now, driving down the street in Washington, D.C., with $1 billion in the bank, 5 PhDs, he hear a squad car and he squeezed the steering wheel tight. Nobody telling him that. That's in his blood. And then when the car passed, he said, thank God, God had nothing to do with it. They wasn't after you in the first place. You have to look way into it, I missed it all coming up. My mother, gave me everything a child would want. See, when I was born, we didn't have welfare. Everything a child would want for Christmas. They told me a white man brought it to me.
So we sit here, you and I, you're 81 years old. You've been a public person for most of that time.
Yes.
And you are not a liberated man?
Not at all. No, you can't get liberated with money. That comes from inside. They convinced me that all black women are ugly. They convinced black women that all black women are ugly. The only woman on the planet, a black American woman, go to a place called a beauty parlor. All the rest of them hair salons, beauty parlor. They teach me something's wrong with my hair. My hair didn't come from Sears and Roebuck. It came from the same God that put the universe together. And yet you hear black folks say, oh, she got good hair, she got bad hair. God in the business of making something bad?
But haven't we shaken some of that off? I don't hear people talk the way I did when I was a kid about good hair and bad hair.
When I was born, they was changing a black person's dollar for 49 cents. Now they give me 98 cents. I don't want 98 cents for $1. I want a full dollar's change for $1, or this cash register will never ring again. You got black folks so ashamed of ride. They call it rebellion. It's not no damn rebellion. A rebellion ain't something you have after a cop shoots somebody. A rebellion is planned. You know the day it's going to start. This is a ride. In Chicago in 1968, it was a police ride. They didn't say police rebellion. A black father, I had 3 boys. I never taught them to behave when you run across an ignorant, racist cop that might kill you. Why? Anytime you teach your child to treat filth nasty, then they think something wrong with them. That's the game. I've never taught my children you have to be twice as smart as white people. See, children don't hear what you mean, they hear what you say. And when you tell them they got to be twice as smart, in their mind, they think they're dumb. That's how it works.
So we turn on the television, another story of a young fella being cut down on the street by a policeman. What's going on in Ferguson? You grew up in St. Louis and around there.
Well, I've always told people, if you ever go to St. Louis, you got to sit your watch back for 3 hours. That's how far back St. Louis is. I mean, here's a town that used to be mostly white, and now 70% black. White mayor, white police chief, anything important is white. Anything important is white. Police department with 53 blacks. So got to be something wrong. before you got to that, you know. And now what I see is horrible coming out of there, because you wake up one morning and they tell you about this person's been shot. And you look at it, and then later the police, you show the picture. He laid there for 4 hours, 4.5. Anytime there's a call that go out, shooting, cop, they don't know if the cop's in trouble. They sent all kind of equipment there. Nobody showed up. Nobody showed up. He lay there 4.5 hours. Then the cop just disappeared. Where he disappeared to. You know, the real black folks are saying, where'd they take him? Where'd they take him? Now, I can understand why you can't get a prosecutor to prosecute, because white prosecutors live in all white areas and they got to go get reelected every 4 years. They ain't about to go reelected every 4 years after putting a white cop in jail for killing a black.
No, but I don't want to miss this point, because I think a lot of Americans don't understand the lack of trust, the lack of credibility of institutions, day-to-day institutions.
Yeah.
And in years of working as a street reporter, I have had black people tell me they don't believe anything from the police crime lab, from the lips of the mayor, from the head of the school board. An alternate narrative comes from the street time and time again. Why?
One of the things I see different in this, and I've been in all of them, I got shot in Watts, is you got black folks now saying it's a conspiracy. What? Well, because the guy in New York, okay, right after the woman get beat up by the state trooper, so they never seen him come this close, so they think there's more to it than what it is.
Right now in Ferguson, there are people talking about recalling the mayor or replacing him in the next election, doing something about that 6%, 7% turnout among black folks in Ferguson. Is that part of the answer? It sounds like you have so little trust that even if they put in a new council, a new school board, a new mayor, that won't even be a help.
If the president of the United States go to New York tonight by himself, unannounced, he can't get a cab. Most powerful man in the world. Now, the problem with that, they had a black mayor. It didn't change. Didn't change. And it's simple to change. All you gotta do is put some decoy cops out there and a camera. And the minute that cab pass you and you see it, pull them over just like they do when they give you a speeding ticket. And then suspend their license for 3 weeks. And you do it again forever. You don't have to go through no whole bunch of changes to do that. It's that simple.
But look at how far the conversation, what we think of as the conversation, has come since you got into the struggle. Aren't we better off as a country?
Not at all. Not at all. It's gone from physical to mental. It's a mental thing now. The South have always said they don't care how close I get. Well, you can't own me as a slave, and I'm not living in the same piece of land you live on, as long as you don't get too big. Up north, they say they don't care how big I get, as long as I don't get too close. And that's there. I mean, my hero, number one, would be John Brown. Not Jesus, not all this other stuff, because John Brown got us sitting here now. He changed everything. With the greatest movement in the history of man is the abolitionary movement. Do you know black folk couldn't belong to it? Here's white folk gonna go out, kill for me, die for me. That was Frederick Douglass' biggest problem. He couldn't be part of the abolitionist movement because they say black folks are too childlike. That hasn't changed yet. Still the same.
So even Frederick Douglass, friend of some of the most prominent Americans of his day, a co-signatory of the Seneca Falls Declaration, one of the most stirring writers of the second half of the 19th century.
Taught himself how to read when he got out of slavery. He couldn't belong. He couldn't belong. And the reason the whole thing changed is John Brown. December the 2nd, where I go now, is Charleston, Virginia. The tree that they hanged him is still there. I just go hug the tree. They tried him, sentenced him. And so on the 2nd, when they hanged him, I go to that courthouse right where he walked out of, walked to the street, turned left, walked 3 blocks, turn right, Walk 3.5 blocks and there's the tree. Okay. And what did he say? He said, you got anything to say before we hang? Yeah. If what I'm hanging for had I done for rich white folks, I'd be your hero. But last night I talked to God. God told me to tell you, the Negro slave is going to be free, but it's going to be the biggest bloodbath in the history of the planet.
Well, he was right about that.
All right, y'all. So let me go ahead and go back. You know, we gotta go back and forth now. So I'm gonna go back to Jemele Hill, okay? And we're gonna pick up where she left off. Okay. We're gonna listen to a little bit more of the talking points from her. And after this is done, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up this live, y'all, and get on up out of here and let y'all go. But I'm going back and forth like this to let y'all hear. We're going from the past to the current, and we're talking about the same things. And we have different individuals, right, that are talking about these things. And we're listening how it all still continues to sound and be the same. So let's go ahead and get back into a few more talking points from Jemele, and then we'll get up out of here after this, y'all.
Literally saying this. And so I just wonder, because we're back to having that racial conversation that I thought we just had 6 years ago, when we told white folks when they wanted to learn more and be more aware, and I'm saying this understanding that we have taken a huge step back since 2020, when everybody was talking about that this is a racial reckoning. I had to chuckle to myself because it wasn't a racial reckoning. It was a moment. It was a small inflection point. But you see how quickly and easily it was for that to revert back. And as we know, if you know anything about history of this country, then you know that every time that there is any level of progress, the backlash to that progress is severe. I mean, the most recent example is obviously Barack Obama. The election of Barack Obama sent white America into such a rage that that's how we got Donald Trump. Because what that signaled, instead of that signaling a turning point for this country to where we can put ourselves in the position to be the best version of ourselves, they instead chose to reject the symbol of progress that it made. A lot of people had an issue with Obama's presidency. I understand those. This is not about that. But symbolically, it represented something different for this country. Like, perhaps we are capable. But it turns out we wanted to bring that old thing back. I mean, that old thing never left, that old thing being white supremacy. But we wanted to bring the white supremacy back even harder. So now we have ICE running around like a modern day slave patrol. And we have a president who has said publicly, and it's in print, you can look it up, that the civil rights movement discriminated against white people. That is what the president of this nation believes. He has said it. So I'm not making that quote up. He told a New York Times reporter that. You can go look it up for yourself. So with that being said, you have to understand why Black people will be so frustrated that white people think this is somehow a different America when all the evidence has been there this entire time. I think the other reason why it's upsetting to hear some white people say that, and again, it's not all of them, but I think the reason why it's upsetting to hear some white people say that is because it also is a tell. And it's a tell in this regard. The reason they're so surprised is because we've seen back-to-back incidents, and there are probably many more, but just these two that have become international incidents, literally, that where the person being victimized by the system, by the white supremacy, they're both white. And we know that there are some white people who find a level of violence, abuse of Black bodies to be completely acceptable, and they have accepted it as just simply the price and the cost of doing business. Violence sanctioned by the state was something that's supposed to happen to us, not to them. So right now, they are flummoxed. All their flabbers are gasted because they never in their mind, and even those, I would say, who comfortably and who like to remind us that they voted for this, that this is what they wanted to see, even they probably did not suspect that some of those bullets and some of those pistol whippings that were supposed to be meant for the Black and brown people, that they were going to be on the receiving end of that. And because of that, that is why they are.
You know, I had this conversation the other day with a friend, and I hate to have to see this, and I know maybe I'll get a lot of backlash for it or judgment for saying it, but I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more with her statement. This is why I'm playing it. This is why I decided to play this context for you guys, this speaking point, because there in this world is a big difference, right? There's always this divide, and as much as we've seen, you know, I showed y'all little pieces of the conversation about the melting pots. They were talking about the melting pot, and I showed y'all, you know, they talking about being in different cities and different states where, you know, there are multi-races there. Yeah, we got all of that. But at the core and the foundation of what people really think and feel, and when I say people, I mean, you know, we could get specific about it. Yeah, white people. Not all, but some. I believe that that is the mindset that a lot of them have when it comes to abuse, when it comes to crimes, when it comes to people being arrested and going to jail or prison, being unalived. I do believe that there's this undertone and this underlying thought and feeling that that's for them, not us. That happens to them, not us. Yeah. Now, I can't say it's everybody, because I know that some people have undergone some of these same things, right? Like they've been arrested, they've gone to jail, they've gone to prison, and they're not all Black, because we don't have all Black people in jails and prisons. There's all races. But to this extent, right, what we've seen playing out here for the past few days, like literally back to back, just like she said, these are two Caucasian individuals that fairly are citizens, weren't doing anything wrong, did not deserve what happened to them. But if people are honest, in a low down sunken place somewhere within their mind and their soul and their spirit, the fear and the temperature just got turned up. Because like she said, at the hands of these type of attacks, of these type of things happening, always in the back of the mind is, it won't be us. It's not going to happen to us. It's not going to happen to our people or our race. These things and these experiences are separate. These are for Black and brown people. These are for people of other nationalities. Not us, though. It doesn't happen to us. The ones who haven't experienced it, haven't been through it, not down with the get down. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that all people feel that way, because it's not all. But there's a select few that we can put in a box, in a group, on a side. And I don't know how many, bodies that will make up or what that count will be. But the count is high enough. It's high enough for us to realize that we still live in a country and we still live in a world where people, how they move and how they think and they operate, is still very much stuck in the past. It's still very much stuck in hatred. It's still very much stuck in prejudice and racism. It's still very much stuck there. And some people desire and enjoy being in that place and space. And so, yeah, I could not agree more from what she's saying. There are a lot of people that right now, when I did a live, it was about a few days ago. And there was a Black man that was also equally gunned down and murdered and abused at the hands of ICE officers. A lot of people don't even know that man's name. They don't even know that happened to him. And yes, I know I'm reporting on these ICE attacks. And I'm reporting on these ICE unalivings. And I don't care what race the person is. Because it's not right. It's never right, no matter what the race. But the fact that we see still to this day, like, it doesn't get the same level of coverage. It doesn't get the same level of, oh my God, this is wrong, this shouldn't happen. Because when it comes to Black and brown people, it's not really the sentiment that people feel of certain races. And even us as our own people in our own communities, we are desensitized to seeing each other gunned down and unalive. And sometimes, yes, it's at the hands of ourselves. And we do it to each other. We get that. We understand that. We got to deal with that. That's true. But there's just like this underlying tone that if it happens to a Black or a brown person, there's no need to stop the presses. There's no need to get flabbergasted, like she just said, right? Because that's to be expected. That's what happens. That's life. That's it. These things happen to you based off of race. But innocent white people, these things are never supposed to happen to them, ever. And when they do, it gets publicized. It gets pushed through the media. It gets talked about. And people are now, I believe, walking maybe around in a state of anger, confusion, maybe fear. And what a lot of Black people have been coming out and talking about and stating is that we would never want to see this happen to anyone. We don't like seeing it when it happens to our friends and our family or ourselves. And we don't want to see it happen to white people or any other race of person. We don't. But a lot of the argument that I've been hearing from people, Black people, is that maybe now, and I'm not saying this needs to happen. I'm not saying it should have ever happened, but maybe now that fear that you're equal game, you're fair game too, this could possibly happen to you too. I don't know. Not me, but some people, I do believe, feel like maybe now you get it. Maybe now you understand the fear that we have to walk around with our entire lives, from young to old, from rich to poor, doesn't matter, your income or your tax bracket, your skin tone and what you look like, you can't change it. And when you go out in this world, it is who you are, it's what you look like, and that's just what it's going to be. And there are experiences and things that happen because of that said skin tone and appearance. That has been happening for a very long period of time. That continues to happen. And there is nothing we can do to change it. We can get straight A's in school. We can have no criminal record, not even a parking ticket. But just based off of what you look like, you may make it home for dinner and you may not. This is what we've been trying to say. This is what we've been trying to tell people for a very long period of time, for very many years. Our ancestors was trying to tell. We, in 2026, are trying to still tell that this is the way of the world. It's not right. We know that. And it's not easy. But we survive somehow. You know, like we walk around somehow. And then, you know, there's these questions of why? Angry black woman, angry black man. Angry. Yep. Would you be angry if every time you step foot outside of your doorstep, you know that there's a possibility you may not make it back based off of just what you look like alone? That you can't control or change. Angry. So I think we in a place, in a space right now where people are like, listen, what do you feel? How do you feel? What do you think about this? You know what I mean? Like, and we want to know, like, is it just selective outrage because it's just people of your race or your nationality? Or is it you feel a type of way because you see now that this is inhumane for people to be treated like this, to end up with these type of fatalities, to walk out of their home, even with their children, and be fearful and scared and not know if any of them is going to make it back home alive that day. Based off of what? Now, I guess the people may be confused because it may not just be necessarily what you look like anymore, because now that rhetoric is out, right? That rhetoric is out. People are all over the place, and I get it. I do. Because we have been conditioned to believe and think and move and operate in one way and one way only. Black and brown people, one way. White people and maybe even some other races a different way. Or nationalities or whatever you want to call it. Because we all are the human race. Now we have to question everything that we've ever been taught or we've ever been told to believe and abide by. And the shifting and the changing, it's probably harder for others more than some, right? Like for some more than others. I'm sorry, I said that backwards. For some more than others. Because you believed in this safety net for so long. And now we're seeing things that's just like this. Now y'all, or some, not the ones, you know, but now y'all seeing that, or you feeling like, oh my God, we're living in the twilight zone. This is abnormal. This doesn't happen. This is not supposed to happen to us. This is not meant for us. This wasn't put in place for us. And to have to swallow that and accept that and watch it. I don't know how it makes some people feel. I don't know. I can't be sure. As a human, with the heart that I have, me watching these things, regardless what skin tone, what nationality or race, well, like I said, human race, it breaks my heart. We should never have to watch these things on live feeds, on the news. We should never have to get these type of reports that this is what's happening to people. It should never be okay. We should never be desensitized to it. We should never be comfortable with it. But there are others that are, and that is the problem. They are comfortable with this type of behavior, this type of treatment, just as long as it's not them and it's not people who also look like them. And that is the hard truth and conversations that we have to have when it comes to all of this. And I know that people don't want to have these conversations. I know they shy away and they're scared to talk about it. They run away. They don't want to listen to it. They don't want to admit it. It's time to start admitting it. It's time to start looking in the mirror and really understanding, if you haven't gotten there yet. Because I think some people have gotten there. Many of people have gotten there. That's why we do see a lot of different experiences amongst humans here in this world, despite their skin or their race or their nationality, whatever. It's a lot of people that are equally as upset when they see a black person gunned down and murdered in the streets as a white person. They're very upset about that. It hurts them. They cry because they care. They give a damn. But there's still, I think, a pretty decent percentage of people that don't. And I don't know. I don't know if this is the turning point. I don't know if this is it right here for them to wake up and smell the coffee beans. I can't be sure. But I do understand when there are black people and they seeing these things. It's not that they wish it on anyone, and it's not that they celebrate it or they're, jumping for joy because it happened. But they still are questioning. They are questioning the outrage of it all when it comes to certain people and how that gets so much media coverage and so much emotions. But when it happens to a black person, it's just a regular day as usual. That is what I think is the major problem in all of this when it comes to the divide that we know we still have in this country. But what is the deeper major problem is that it's happening, period. Despite the race, despite the skin tone, despite the nationality. It should never happen to anybody. In my opinion, and how I feel in my heart. And it's almost every day now that I turn on the TV and I turn on the news, or I get on YouTube on the computer, and somebody has been murdered for no reason whatsoever. That's a problem for me. Anyway, let her talk a little bit longer and then we'll get up out of here, y'all.
Openly saying how surprised and shocked and terrified and disappointed they are. And meanwhile, black people, as Teyana Taylor and Kenan Thompson did in the SNL skit, are like, we all got our gospel ums. Because we know what this country is capable of. I've said this and I will continue to say this, is black people know this country better than anybody. You know how they say when, you're married, one of the harder parts of marriage, or one thing that you learn in marriage, is that it really gets to the core and the guts of who you are. Marriage is often a reflection. And so, as they say in the vows in marriage, is like for better or worse. And a lot of times when you're married, you're going to see the person you're married to at their worst.
Why are women everywhere choosing Abby X, the new tummy tuck alternative? I got the
Black people have seen many, many times or live in the default space of always seeing America at its worst. Now, don't confuse that to mean that we think this is a bad place. But what we're saying is we've seen that ugly hidden part of America that they try to hide from the rest of the world, seen it and experienced it up close. And because of that, we know this country better than anybody else because we know the lengths, we know the degree in which this country will go to preserve white supremacy, to preserve the hierarchy of race that they created to justify the dehumanization of us and of other people that are here, that are not white. So when you want to know what this country is about, just ask somebody Black, because we know. Because a lot of us have lived in times where the country is at the worst, have experienced it being at its worst. And so you're going to learn probably the hard way, and hopefully before it's not too late. Listen to Black people who will forever tell you about how these systems really operate. And this is also a great lesson for all of us to learn, not just white people, because I for certain heard Black people say, when ICE first started their reign of terror under this regime, that ain't our problem. Heard a lot of us saying that. That's them. Let them work that out. That ain't our problem. Oh, it is very much our problem. It has been our problem because we've experienced this before. And as you have seen from probably many of the video footage in Minneapolis, they yanking up a lot of Somalis over this notion that they're there committing a level of fraud that doesn't even sound believable. Okay, that's just the excuse used to go target a population, or let's do all the dot connecting here. Really, this is just political retaliation against Tim Walz. And it's retaliation against the state of Minnesota. Now, I don't.
All right, y'all. So I am going to go ahead and end this live here. If y'all want to check out the full entire videos of some of the stuff that I played tonight on this live, I will put the links in the description box for you so you can watch it all the way through. Go check out these people's channels, subscribe, become a member, watch the content. I like to play content on my channel here of some really good people. I like to play content from channels that I think are excellent, from speakers that I think are excellent. They're talking about the things that we need to be talking about. They're fighting the good fight, all of that type of stuff. Okay. So I will have those links in the description for y'all if you want to check it out. But let me go ahead and, end it with a bop per usual. I thank you if you listen, whether you're in the bush, you came in or not, doesn't matter, or you want to listen on the replay. I hope you really fully understand what it is I was trying to get across tonight, right, with this conversation. Number one, rest in peace to Alex Pretti. I think that's how you say his last name. Rest in peace to Renee Good. And rest in peace to each and every other person who is now no longer with us for unnecessary reasons, just being taken down by ICE, right? Unjustifiable. Exactly. So, or, in the world and life, we got people that are sick. We got people, that are going through a lot of things. So if there is anybody out there that's suffering from a loss and they have lost someone, rest in peace to these people that we're losing left and right. It just seems like it's happening so frequently, and there's there's just a mass uptick of losses. So rest in peace, everyone. But y'all, thank you for listening into the live. Let me go ahead and get up out of here before my son start cutting up, child. He got to go to bed. I'm going to end it with a bop per usual, and I will be back tomorrow, y'all, with another live. It's always something going on within this government and the political sector, and I'm going to keep y'all updated on some of these things. So Thank y'all very much. God bless everybody. Stay safe, stay smart. And we're going to make it through this, y'all. We're going to be okay. So keep hope alive. All right, y'all. That's all I got. I'm out. Thank you so much for joining. Bye.
They drag us from the coast. Middle passage madness, where we lost the most. Packed in hoes like cargo, spirits in a cage. Built a brand new nation, lived a life of rage. Yeah, we were the property, the 3/5 compromise. Picked the cotton, built the White House with our hands inside. And they watered all the poplar trees with our blood and cries. Yeah, you know what they were for beneath the southern skies. That strange fruit hanging message of their hate. A simple wrong look was enough to seal your fate. To my brown kin, they just stole it, called it manifest. Killed the Aztecs, stole the planes, put them to the west. Good old days, the signs on the wall. They want us broken, silent, waiting for the call. They wanna push us backwards, drag us down to hell, but we ain't going back, not going back. We ain't going back. We ain't going back. We ain't going back. Let's talk about a word. See your word. Let's talk about a word. See how it sticks. 6 letters, COLORED to politics. Not a person, just a label, just a shade on a chart. A legal way to tear a whole damn race apart. Colored water fountain, colored waiting room, colored entrance round the back, a social living tomb. Jim Crow was the law, man. Segregation was the tool. Taught a child to hate his own skin before he went to school. And it ain't just here, that's the global view. Apartheid, colonization, yeah, they did it there too. That word was a weapon, a boot on the neck to say you live, you die, you move at our check. They want the good old days, the signs on the wall. They want us broken, silent, waiting for the call. They wanna push us backwards, drag us down to hell, but we ain't going back. 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 Don't you dare say it's repeating. It never stops. They just got new suits, new slogans, new cops. They ban the books that tell the truth of Act 1. They call a protest riot soon as the marching's done. They tell us get over it, it wasn't us. While they build the same systems of them and us. Gerrymander the district, choke the money from the school. Praise the good old days while they fill the modern jails. This is the warning, this is the last thing. We learned your lessons, now we understand. We are the children of the ones you couldn't break. We are the dreams that you could never ever take. We are the fire you tried to douse with ice. We paid the cost, we ain't gon' pay it twice. You want us back in chains, you want us on our knees. We'd rather die right here standing on our feet. This ain't a threat, this is a promise we fulfill. We ain't ever going back. We'll fight you tooth and nail. We ain't going back.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with that the dark past has taught us. We remember it all. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Hope is alive, yeah. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on. Let's keep marching till victory is won. Stony the road we trod. Bitter the casting rock. But we're still here.
Roof above a shelter from the storm, a gentle hand to keep a spirit warm, a plate of food, a mind that's free to learn, a simple peace, a righteous ways to earn. These are the needs, the bedrock and the base, the sacred ground of the whole human race. But the screen is screaming, selling something cheap, while the real world babies cry themselves to leave. Life you desperately choose. They magnify the hate, they celebrate the greedy, and plant a poison, a suffocating weed. We gotta reach our children, pull them from the glow and show them the beauty that the media don't know. Yeah. Yo, check the vision, the mission of the television, spitting division in a mental prison. Got the youth chasing likes, addicted to the feed, ignoring the hunger, the fundamental need. They building paper idols on the digital stage, putting our future daughters in a virtual cage. Now we gotta break the cycle, gotta cut the cord. The real word is powerful, mightier than the sword. So we teach them about their history, teach them about their grace, teach them about the power in every single face. Let's go!
single fraction of the community holding it down on the ground. Time to get loud, make a revolutionary sound. Look your child in the eye, tell them that they matter. Tell them their spirit's something that no lie can shatter. Tell them knowledge is the weapon, love is the shield, and the truth is the harvest we're gonna grow in this field. Yeah.